Why should we believe that a cap on a property tax would actually work, given the skill with which elected officials can get around limits like that?
And on the one hand, and then on the other hand, answer. On the one hand, in Massachusetts, one aspect of Massachusetts that is different, that cap was passed by the voters of Massachusetts, who have a limited right of initiative and referendum, which New Yorkers lack. So it gave it more political weight. It is not a constitutional cap. It is a statute passed by the voters and could be altered or overridden at any time by the Massachusetts legislature. Barbara Anderson, the Citizens Initiative leader who was behind that, told me that the early years of Prop 2.5, they used to have a hand truck that would wheel in stacks and stacks and stacks of proposed legislation designed to modify Prop 2.5 in the early years of Prop 2.5. Today, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I think that one aspect of the Prop 2.5 approach, on the other hand, that gets at what you're talking about is, yes, I want to let you get around it. Massachusetts style, you'd have an override. You could have an override for capital and an override for operating. Many, many, in hundreds of cases of Massachusetts, school districts have passed overrides, including overrides where they went to the voters and said specifically, we want to pay the teachers more. And those things actually passed in some places. Now, an aspect that's pointed out, I think, fairly by CBC on this is, yes, but the overrides, based on research in Massachusetts, tend to pass most easily in wealthy districts. Yes. You're always going to have wealthy districts, and they are going to be the ones who want to get around it. Here's the virtue of the override. You have an answer or a rejoinder to the whining that inevitably results when the guy who's wealthy doesn't like the size of his tax bill. It's up to you how big your tax bill is at the end of the day. And if this results in more inequities, the answer is to address it through the state aid formula. I thought a very powerful chart there was the one that said, if you took the STAR money and redistributed it through the aid formula, as conventionally designed now, or redesigned in part by Governor Spitzer, look at how the aid was redistributed. If you had a cap, you could also cap STAR in the process. And you could start distributing future aid on that basis. And that begins to address the inequities. You're never going to have a perfect system. There's not a state in the union that now or ever, including even Vermont, which, John, you talked about Vermont earlier, that has eliminated inequity in school funding. But you got to stop the bleeding is the point with the cap. And so I think that, yes, there is a way to get around it. Give them the override, like in Massachusetts. Yes, they'll use it. But I think that that is the democratic outlet there. And I think that if you pass something like this in New York, I would predict to you that, in fact, there would not, there'd be those initial piles of legislation, many of them inspired by NYSET, to get around, or the school districts themselves, to get around the cap. But that it would be popular, it would be strong, and it would withstand those kinds of assaults.